Between her visits this spring, Erica has led just about 30 engagements with members of our community, staff, and host partners here in Omaha, Lincoln, and Council Bluffs, ensuring that all members of our large community get the chance to interact with a scholar like Erica. The goals of Tapestry are simple yet important. We hope this experience with a notable scholar inspires continued Jewish learning, creates opportunities for meaningful relationships and connection, and strengthens each person's sense of belonging within our community. I want to give a big thank you and a big shout out to my team, Johnny, Shirley, and Sharon, for supporting Tapestry this year. I couldn't do it without you, so thank you so much for that. I'd also like to acknowledge the funds that support Tapestry: the Philip and Terry Schrager Supporting Foundation, the Herbert Goldston Fund, the Klutznick Custodial Fund, the Shirley and Leonard Goldstein Supporting Foundation, the Milton S. and Corrine N. Livingston Foundation Fund, the Chesed Fund, and Dr. Bernard H. Bloom and Dr. Bruce S. Bloom Memorial Endowment Fund. And now just a few words about Erica, Dr. Brown. Throughout the week, many of us have had the opportunity to experience firsthand the warmth, deep care, and sincerity that Erica brings to her teaching. She invited our community into conversations that were both meaningful and deeply personal, whether discussing leadership, relationships, Jewish identity, gratitude, or the complexities of the world that we're currently living in. She encouraged us to pause and consider how a shift in perspective can help shape the way we respond to our life's uncertainties. What makes the experience so special isn't simply the range of topics she explores, but the way she grounds each conversation both in modern Jewish wisdom and our ancient texts that have guided us for so many generations. Erica has a remarkable gift for helping us see how timeless teachings still speak directly to the questions we wrestle with today. Dr. Brown showed us why learning and community matters. Spending the week with her was a gift to the community and very much to me as well. So I'd like to invite my friend, Dr. Erica Brown, up to the front here to talk about a Jewish approach to friendship.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Naomi. All that love back at you. I have my new Omaha besties. And there's so many people in this room who have opened your hearts to me over the course of the week. Repeat offenders who are here, whose faces I recognize. Thank you so much for coming and for coming back. The relationship of all learning is really, it's not about ideas, it's about the relationship of ideas and people. I always get upset when people don't make an effort to learn people's names when they teach, because then I understand that knowledge is divorced from the relationship, which it really never is. And we're going to talk about that today. But in this wide room of people, I have an opportunity to thank the Tapestry team, led by Naomi, for an absolutely magnificent week of learning. I'll be here over Shabbat as well, and that's been very special. And I want to acknowledge Bob, who has been, I guess, chief strategist here, and I've gotten to see the fruits of your labor, the buildings, the staff, the connectivity, and the generativity and the creativity, and it's really it's a gift that you're here, and I hope everyone recognizes that gift. All right, so let's talk about friendship. Friendship changes, it evolves. I think of my friends now as a hobby. I never used to think of them as a hobby. They were just there, right? As when you go to school, whoever you're with in class, that seems to be your packet of friends. Some of them are harder to deal with. Some of them aren't your friends. If you remember sixth grade, no one wants to go back there, but, you're thinking about the people who were, the queen bee and the difficult person and the popular kids, and I wasn't one of those popular kids, right? So it's like, you're sort of put together, and then you think your friends are the people who are just situationally appropriate. They might be in your neighborhood, they might be in your class, they might be in your Hebrew school class, whatever the circumstances. And then, as you get older, you go to high school, you go to college, and then friendship takes a little bit more of an effort because You might be separated. You're not in the same institution. Sometimes you're not in the same state. Sometimes you're not in the same country. And then life happens where you're building your own family, you're working, and you realize that if you're going to actually invest in friends, it is going to take intention and work. And COVID happened. And when COVID happened, a lot of us shifted friendship because we didn't have the bandwidth for a lot. So some people rose. They were the people we really wanted to talk to and confide in and relieve our stress with or just get some support from. And then, a lot of other people went to the side, and that's hard. In particular, people who we only had everyday engagements with. Maybe we saw their face passing at work and we were working remotely. Am I the only person who friends shifted for and during COVID? Is that? No? Okay, I'm looking for a little recognition. Yes. I was doing reading about it. Yes, it is. It has been hard. And so I say a hobby because what I came to realize is that I have to be intentional about relationships or I will lose them because busyness takes over and other people take over. Now I'm a grandparent and I noticed a lot of people who used to invest, now they have grandchildren of their own and they're busy traveling to see their grandchildren, and so they just never show up for you. And and am I that person? Like, what does it mean to show up for people? Because we're always busy. So there are choices that we can make, and also, we have a limited amount of time and limited amount of emotional bandwidth, which we're going to talk about a little today. So I have a few questions at the top for us to reflect on. What are the 3 most important qualities you look for in a friend? The 3 qualities that you bring to relationships as a friend. If you've lost a friend, what was the reason for the breakup? Have your notions of friendship changed as you've gotten older? So I want to start with the last one and just sort of, this is open mic time, possibly therapy, I don't know. Anyone want to speak to how your notions of friendship may have changed as you've aged? Not that we're all young looking. We all look young. Anyone want to speak to this? Please. Yeah. So that's the wisdom, right? The wisdom of age and experience where you say, it used to be, again, friends were just one pool. And now I categorize them. And they're friends that I can talk about serious life things and maybe get some advice from or give them some advice. And then there are friends that I just have a good time with, and that's fantastic, and that's enough. And then there might be hobby friends, right? I notice Mahjong is very big now. How many of you play Mahjong? Okay, so it hasn't really hit Omaha. I don't know. I just...
They're just not here.
They're just not here. They're playing Mahjong. So I notice, sometimes now I'm in the East Coast, so I go into a room and they're like, do you play Mahjong? And I'm like, no. And then they walk away. It's like, wow, this is a whole new category of 6th grade. I don't know. But as we age, we also become discerning, and we also give people the pass. You don't have to be everything for me. Because all those relationships we freighted with all of that expectation, you should be everything for me. And if I have a good time with you, but I can't actually trust you with my deepest secrets, you're not my friend. But I have a good time with you, and there's merit in that, right? And I might enjoy being with you. And that serious friend you can talk to about everything, sometimes too serious for me. I can't have another conversation about the Holocaust with you. I need to, play pinball. I don't know. And so part of the honesty about friends is honesty about ourselves and our expectations of other people. And what happens when we expect too much of children, or we expect too much of spouses, or every person doesn't have to fill my cup the same way. And they can still fill my cup. And isn't that a great observation? Anyone else? Something that's changed with age? Yeah. This table is smoking. I don't know what's going on, but go ahead. Annetta.
This is funny. I have this small group. There's 4.
Yeah. So this, what Annetta's sharing is this sort of brutal honesty that emerges in certain relationships with age. We're able to be a little bit more honest about our own vulnerabilities because we're all experiencing them. And COVID was a time. It was a time of global vulnerability, which maybe helped people who are not emotionally attuned access some feelings that they were hiding. There are a lot of challenges with aging. I don't have to tell you, right? Health challenges with relationships, challenges at work that might be different, and job loss, empty nesting. I don't like the term empty nesting because I think it communicates that lives are empty without children. I think accordion is a better image, right? Sometimes they come back and it's wide, and sometimes the house is more narrow, and sometimes you feel more expansive, but sometimes you feel like, oh, this is underrated. This has been great to not have to worry about all kinds of other things. So I think that sense of being able to be picking your pack of people who you can be vulnerable with, because there is so much fragility, and the world has become a much more fragile, unpredictable place. So being able to say, who can I really be honest with, and who am I going to take into the dressing room with me, who's actually going to tell you that does not suit you. Yeah, that does not suit you. And and after a while you just figure out like who are the people who are telling you things just because they want you to feel good, but you kind of know better yourself. Anything else? Yeah, please. Yeah. But it sounds like sometimes you need something from them, and that's not what they can give you. There are the kvetchers, right? The complainers. You call them up, there's always a problem. The day is sunny, but it's raining on their house. And sometimes it gets exhausting to feel like you're the sounding board for a life that doesn't feel also blessed and joyful, right? So, feeling impatient. Does anyone share that impatience? Right, become maybe a little bit less patient with people. I mean, we're in a time that's heavily political, so some conversations for people, they're just agenda-based all the time. And you know what? We can't necessarily. Might be able to influence in our small way, but we can't control politics. We can't control some of the outside forces. And there are people who they're stuck to the news, and they're always reporting to you also things that you thought were healthy, which now will kill you. That's a big part of this, I find. So stay away, because a month from now they're going to discover that's not going to kill you. It's actually really, really healthy for you, and it's probiotic. I don't know. Okay. Anything else anyone wants to share? Please.
I just think, especially since COVID, you get more protective and kind of not aggressive with your community, but you really protect those friendships, and also keep them on the down low, just being this is mine, this is my sacred thing, and I don't want to share it with somebody else. I'm looking at other people in this room who are part of my pods.
All right. Okay, so the pod is funny, right? So we're sort of still emotionally in a pod, right, where there's a certain fierceness about protecting the people we love, and that's wonderful, except if you get on the wrong side. But fierceness of protecting what you have, because I guess maybe we thought we might lose, and some of us did lose, right? People we cared about and we loved, or relationships we cared about and we loved. I brought this up as an example the other day, so if you heard me say it, I'm repeating it because I think it's important. A woman wrote to Amy, not Abigail Van Buren or Amy Landers, right? Her name is Amy. Yeah, dear Amy. I saw there in the museum in Council Bluffs. I saw the two of those ladies. So anyway, a woman wrote, and she said, "I'm not sure what to do. I was diagnosed with a very serious illness and thought it was going to take my life. And there were some people who I didn't expect really showed up for me, and there were some people I really expected to show up for me, and they weren't there for me." And she said, "I've recovered, but those friendships haven't. What should I do?" And Amy wrote back and said, "Well, some people, it's hard for them to deal with their own mortality, and they see someone who's ill, and they just worry that they're going to be next. And so why don't you just give them some jobs? They can go to the grocery store for you. They can do other things for you, because it might be hard to actually spend time with you." And I didn't write to her, but I felt like this is a lame response. I'm sorry. I said, when other people are sick, do you want when you're sick, people aren't going to show up for you because you're fragile because you're needy. Like, we don't get the pass on that. And sometimes the relationships that drop out of our lives are when we're going through something difficult and someone else just doesn't make space or time for us. And then are we going to be, to Anetta's point, brutally honest and say, you're not showing up for me in this way, which may be a decision. That may be your decision, but my decision is that I can't invest in the relationship in the same way. On the other side, Hannah Arendt, who is a social philosopher and wrote about the Nuremberg trials, she made a comment about forgiveness, which has really stuck deep in the craw. She said, when you're in a relationship where you cannot grant someone forgiveness, it's as if you have put that person under a spell from the time, that moment that you no longer, that you decided you no longer want to associate. That person insulted you or offended you or wasn't sensitive to you or didn't understand you, and you just froze time. And so your lives go on, but for the two of you in your relationship, let's say you went to college together in the 70s and you had an incident as roommates, and now that incident is, dozens of years old now. And you haven't moved on. And I remember talking about this once before Yom Kippur in one of my adult classrooms, and a woman came up to me after and she said, and I talked about reaching out to people who were estranged from your life, friends who you lost, but you really did enjoy them, but you just haven't released someone from the spell. And she said, I want to thank you. I called my brother. We've been estranged for a long time, 30 years. That's a long time in a relationship. And she said, I called him because, to tell you the truth, I know approximately what we argued about, but I can't even really remember the argument anymore. And I miss him, and I have I don't have my parents anymore. I don't have any other siblings. So she called him, and when he picked up the phone, he said, I was just thinking about you. And she called me. I was so touched by that, that she tried it, and she said, and this is going to be slow and it's going to be gradual, but I can see that maybe we're going to make our way back to each other, because people aren't always in the same emotional place. And I want to look at the relationship of Ruth and Naomi in one of the most famous statements, biblical statements about friendship. So if you turn with me, you're on the first page. So you're on the first page. It's right on the bottom of the first page there. It says, do not urge me to leave you, to turn back and not follow you. Wherever you go, I'll go. You lodge, I'll lodge. Your people will be my people. Your God, my God. Where you die, I die. There I'll be buried. Thus and more may the Lord do to me, if anything but death parts me from you. Okay, so we're going to stop there. I'll give you the context. Ruth is, let's talk about Naomi. Naomi and her husband Elimelech and 2 sons leave Bethlehem. Bethlehem means house of bread, Beit Lechem. They leave during a famine. There's some irony in leaving a house of bread during a famine. They leave during a house, and they go to the fields of Moab, which seem to be is there a noise out here? Yeah. Oh, it's camp. Okay. Oh, yeah, vibrant campus. Oh, okay. I thought maybe it was my phone or something. All right, so they go to Moab, which is enemy territory. If you do a little bit of biblical history, you know that the Moabites denied the Jews bread as they sojourned in the desert. So ironic, you're going to leave a house of bread to go to somewhere who's denied you bread. Something is definitely going to go wrong. So Elimelech dies, and then Naomi is left with her 2 young sons, and then her 2 young sons die. And she's left with these daughters-in-law she doesn't seem to be connected to, and they get to the fork in the road. And in the fork of the road, they make a decision. Naomi says, don't come with me. I don't have anything for you. I'm not going to give birth to more children for you, and they'll be husbands to you. God has punished me. Don't come with me. I'm not your good luck charm. And I'm not your future. Go back to your mothers, which makes much more sense. And Orpah, rabbis say that Eref is a neck, that she turned her neck away from her mother-in-law. She kisses her mother-in-law and she leaves, and that is totally expected. But Ruth is the one who says, I will be with you forever. And they are not a likely pair, a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law, to have this kind of relationship. A woman who's older and a woman who's younger. a woman who came from wealth, Naomi, and a woman who we don't know her origin story, but she's willing to throw in her lot with Naomi. Now, if someone makes a speech like this to you, where they put out their heart in this way, not only their heart, but they say, you will never be alone again, what do you expect Naomi to say in return?
Nothing.
You don't expect to say nothing. Thank you.
Speechless.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love you too. Heart emoji. Let's look at what she does say. So if you turn the page. When Naomi saw how determined she was to go with her, she ceased to argue with her. And the two went on until they reached Bethlehem. So she doesn't argue with her. She kept pushing her away. She stops pushing her away, but she doesn't pull her towards. So this bothered me like crazy. It's like, because I was imagining myself being Ruth and making this speech. And sometimes, I guess, maybe to a lesser degree, we've made these sort of speeches to friends, to people we care about. I am willing to do anything for you. And they don't give back the love. And that becomes very, very hard. They don't give back the love. Or, those are the ping pong friends where it's the suffering Olympics. You go, oh, I just went to the dentist, had a cavity. You had a cavity? I had a root canal. I got a dent in my car. Totaled my car. So like my dent now is not big as your head-on collision. And now you just erased my bad day because your day was worse. I don't know if you have relationships like this, but they're worth evaluating. Where you feel like this person is really not taking in anything that I'm saying. They just aren't listening. They just need to say their thing. Why don't we just start with you and continue with you, and we will also end with you. So Naomi, so that's the way I saw this, and I was so troubled by it. And then I started thinking about my own, I mentioned it briefly yesterday at the beautiful annual meeting, about my grandparents and their Holocaust story. And my grandparents had a really hard time being friends with you if you had not been in the Holocaust, because, how do I even explain who I am? But also, they never talked about the Holocaust with their friends because they didn't want to go back there, right? So it was always this really interesting dance of friendship that I mostly I watched them play cards for nickels, and I started to understand something about, as observing my grandparents as closely as I did, since they really were in my home every day. This notion of Naomi going through so much suffering. Each one of them suffered, but Naomi lost everything. She lost a husband and sons and her country. Her life is like an inverted triangle that just, right, loss of country, loss of city, loss of friends, loss of husband, loss of sons, and then she makes a decision. I think it's really the most courageous verb in all of the Hebrew Bible. V'takam, she got up. All this loss, and you could say, I'm done. I can't go on. I don't even know how to put one foot in front of the other. And she makes a decision. You know what? I'm going back. I'm returning. And returning can be harder. It's hard when you leave in a time of crisis and then you come back. Your friends aren't exactly happy to see you. Hazot Naomi? Is this Naomi? Oh, you left in a Chanel dress and now you're in Target, right? Or, you left and where's your husband? Where are your sons? What happened to you? And that question is painful. I think it was Thomas Wolfe who wrote about women at a party. They look each other over with microscopic carelessness. Microscopic carelessness. And you're like, oh yeah, I went to that party. Or maybe we look at ourselves with microscopic carelessness. Anyway, they don't welcome her back. They reject her. They don't even notice Ruth. They said, is this Naomi? They don't say, is Ruth with you? And so if you're Naomi and you've had this period of loss, when someone else attaches themselves to you in a clingy way, right? Davak, to hug, you might say, I don't have bandwidth for you. I'm sorry, I don't. In fact, a colleague and a really masterful Bible teacher, Dr. Viva Zornberg, you might come across many of her books. Very deep, very profound, and she talks about the problem of clinginess. We look at Ruth and we talk about how amazing Ruth is, and she's this paragon of friendship and virtue. But if you don't want someone to be in your life who is clinging desperately to you, and she's like, I don't have. She says, I don't have to give you. Like, stop asking me to give you something. I can't worry about your future, because right now I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other and get myself back to Bethlehem. I'm not here. I'm not down for you to you're a weight, right? I'm not taking an additional weight. Now, as it happens, as they get back and Ruth proves her kindness, and she goes out to get food for them and forages in ways that would have been humiliating. And I think Naomi starts to see her a little bit differently. You're not weighing me down. You're an asset to my life. But it didn't feel like that at the moment. And it's one of the things that very striking, if you look at the other famous friendship in the Bible, which is David and Jonathan, they are unequal friends. Jonathan is a much better friend to David than David is to Jonathan. Ruth is a much better friend to Naomi than Naomi is to Ruth. But that doesn't mean that the friendship is not generative and important. These are very important friendships, without which neither of them could truly live and exist. I want to look at a few things. Let's look at two, Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, who was really a master commentator. He says, although the exchanges in friendship, and we're on page 2, are not measured, friendship is mutual. Friends have to maintain a sense of equity. A parasite is not a friend. One party may be stronger, or the friends may rely on each other for different things, but there must be a mutuality in the relationship. Friends have to be able to lean on each other. And I learned this expression recently. Wait, it's going to come to me because it's not a word I know. It's the Johara window. That's not the right word, but it'll come to me, hopefully, or not. The window is how much you open yourself up to someone else when you disclose or expose yourself, and the other person does not expose themselves at all. So that question of like, how much of a window are you going to open? Now you might feel, in certain relationships, I open my window wide and it was icky. I don't know anything about this other person. They really haven't reciprocated in any way. So now maybe I'll be a little more judicious. How much leaders will open up of themselves, because there are dangers in opening yourself up. So I'm only going to expose myself to the degree that you can expose yourselves. And I think, unfortunately, we walk in the world holding a lot of pain, ambiguity, imposter syndrome, lack of self-confidence, because we think everybody else has this all worked out, and I'm the only one who hasn't figured this out. So let's look at two statements in friendship. One is from the Bible, one's from Ecclesiastes. Either friendship or death, oy chavruta, oy mituta. A chavruta is, there are very few Hebrew roots. Amos and I were going over some Hebrew roots. We're having a good time. So one of them, Amos, is for your collection, is chaver, which is friend. Lechaber is to connect. It is also the root of electricity, right? To connect, right? So in Hebrew, in modern Hebrew. So the idea of a chibur, there's some kind of deep connection. We also, in Aramaic, a chavruta is a study partner. And on one level, a great study partner or death, in other words, the life of the mind is dependent on someone else prodding you. And if you came, for example, to Yeshiva University, where I work as an administrator, you would see not one, but several batei midrash, houses of study, where students sometimes stay late in the night arguing with each other about Jewish texts. It's really extraordinary. And, it's extraordinary to take our creditors to that kind of, like, what do you mean they don't get grades? What do you mean they stay here late at night? Why are they arguing? It's not a library. Why are they talking so loudly? Because it's this vibrant kinetic energy around learning. So that's one way we think about friendship, the exchange of ideas, and we don't want to be the same in that exchange of ideas. Let's say you have more language basis and I'm more analytical, so we're going to argue, and you're going to use your sources and I'm going to use my source of expertise, and together we're going to sharpen each other. Then there's this statement in Ecclesiastes. You're going to see this as opportunistic, and it is, and also. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labor. If they fall, the one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him that is alone when he falls, for he is not another to help him up. And that continues to, if you have two in the bed, they warm the bed. Now, that could have a sexual connotation, but it could just say, it's a cold night. It's cold and the bed needs to be warm. So this idea of having friends who you know will pick you up and they will have the work will be more efficient if two people do the work together. I don't think that that's making not a deep friendship. I think a lot of us have friends who help each other out. And here we're going to do an important comparison, and then we'll open it up. Any questions, thoughts, observations? So Cicero, who was a Roman philosopher and statesman, he wrote he has several collections of thoughts on important life matters, and one of his is on friendship. So I gave you the translation. Not that I didn't think you could read in the Latin original, but I cannot read in the Latin original. So this is what he thinks about friends. The support and stay of that unswerving constancy which we look for in friendship is loyalty. Nothing is constant that is disloyal. Moreover, the right course is to choose for a friend one who's frank, sociable, and sympathetic. That is one who's likely to be influenced by the same motives as yourself, since all these qualities conduce to loyalty. For it's impossible for a man to be loyal whose nature is full of twists and twinings, and indeed one who is untouched by the same influences as yourself and is naturally unsympathetic cannot be either loyal or steadfast. To this observation should be added a requirement tending to produce that steadfastness, which I've been discussing for some time. A friend must neither take pleasure in bringing charges against you, nor believe them when made by others. And so the truth of what I said in the beginning is established. Friendship cannot exist except among good men. So what is Cicero looking for in a friend? Loyalty. Loyalty above all else, except, baseline, you have to be like him. You have to be like him because that's what he believes, that friendship exists among two people, let's say two people of virtue, who have similar interests. If you have a similar interest to me, I can be loyal to you. I'm not going to disagree with you. So his friendship pool is very, very similar, right? And there's pleasure in that. I'm sure there's pleasure in that. But that is not the way that Maimonides processed friendship at all. And I want to share what I think has been very instrumental for me in thinking about friends and thinking about the different kinds of friends that one seeks out in life. So there's a commentary on the Mishnah. The Mishnah are oral teachings. They were gathered around the 2nd century and redacted. And then that's the Mishnah. The Talmud is the conversation and argumentation about those small pieces of oral law that were memorized. And the Talmud is an encyclopedic work of approximately 63 volumes. It takes 7.5 years to complete the Talmud. That's a folio page. That's one side and another side. So it takes 7.5 years. I don't know if anyone here has done what we call Daf Yomi. It's an amazing thing. I think in June of 2027, they'll finish the cycle of 7.5 years. And if I tell you, you cannot get a ticket in Madison Square Garden. It is easier to see Beyonce than to get into the Siyum of Daf Yomi. I'm not even joking, right? It is very hard, and they will have them all over the world because everybody finishes on the same day. It's really amazing. I did one cycle. I was so happy, and actually I finished in the first all-female completion of the Talmud, and I got to speak in Jerusalem. So that was like, oh, this is my Super Bowl, a nerd Super Bowl for me. But I remember being on Amtrak one day, and my Talmud is out, and someone just walked by and said 32B and kept going. This is like this secret, Skull and Bones club of who's doing the Talmud. So anyway, Maimonides. So the Mishnah became much larger in terms of the Gemara or these teachings, and together that's the Talmud. And it was redacted in the 5th or 6th century. So it took centuries of collecting the teachings for various academies. The editorial process is somewhat mysterious to us. So we have scholars who have been writing and thinking about how the Talmud was put together. And I hope you'll have experiences to study different parts of the Talmud. Legal documents, lots of stories about the way rabbis behaved. lots of reflections on how to read particular biblical passages. And they were scholars. They had thoughts on astronomy and what you should eat and how you should take care of yourself. So those pop in there too. So Maimonides at 23 begins a commentary on the Mishnah. I mean, I don't know why he started so late, but Maimonides is really, there has never really been someone like Maimonides in the years. He died in 1135 to 1204. He was a giant in every possible way. He wrote on astronomy, he wrote on mathematics, he wrote letters, he wrote an important philosophical work in Arabic called The Guide to the Perplexed. He took Aristotle's thought and tried to make, let's say, Jewish adaptations of Aristotle's thought. So he was a philosopher, he was a legalist. I mean, I had the privilege of studying with one of the great Maimonides scholars, Professor Isidore Tversky, as a graduate student. And the feeling was you could never, if you studied everything for the rest of your life, you couldn't cover it. So Maimonides writes this commentary in 23, and he takes on a particular Mishnah, a particular saying, and I want to look at that on 3. It's right there, a little underneath the middle. The Mishnah says, Joshua ben Prachia taught, make for yourself a teacher, acquire for yourself a friend, judge everyone with the scale weighted in his favor. So this is unusual language. Make for yourself a teacher and acquire a friend, right? Aseh lecha rav ukneh lecha chaver. We don't usually make teachers. We don't usually acquire friends. We don't rent friends, and we have teachers. So Maimonides says, make for yourself a teacher. That is to say, even if he's not suited to be your teacher, put him in the position of being your teacher until it seems to you that he is indeed teaching. And you'll acquire wisdom from learning, because learning from another is of different quality than learning from one's own. And he says, this holds true if he's your equal, even your inferior in wisdom. So what does it mean to make a teacher? This doesn't mean I'm in school and I have a teacher. This is, I see someone in life who does something maybe better than I do or has a skill, and I say, I need to learn from you. So whether that's mahjong or how to be a better parent or how to be a better friend, I have a lot to learn from you, and I need to make you into my teacher, even if your job description does not say, your business card does not say, I am a teacher, but I'm going to watch you, observe you, and you'll be my teacher. And sometimes people are teachers for us that we don't even see. They might be, let's say you read a book about a subject and it really influenced you. That author may be a teacher. You made that person into a teacher. You said, I'm gonna read everything that this person wrote because it's really helped me. I would say I read leadership books so you don't have to, because there's just so many that come out and so many of them are terrible. But every once in a while there's a great one, and I like to recommend books. So I've learned so much just from reading about people who write about leadership. Of course, you watch people. People have to be your role models for this, but sometimes you'll read something and that person becomes a teacher for you. Maimonides then says, acquire for yourself a friend. Note the language of acquisition. It doesn't say make yourself a friend or become friendly with others. The point is a person has to acquire someone who will love him, who will correct his deeds and all his matters. As the saying goes, either friendship or death. And we just looked at that saying. Let's turn to the back page. And if he doesn't find a friend, he has to persevere with all his heart, even to the point of seducing the other person to love him until he wins his love. He shouldn't cease from bowing to his will until his love is strong. As the teachers have said, when you love, don't love on your own terms, but rather on the terms of your beloved. So one way we acquire friends is actually paying attention to what they need and giving them what they need, not what we need. And that is an art. That is an art, because we might project, oh, I'm going to give this person a present, but it's what I wanted to give them, or maybe what I want. Remember, I don't know if you remember The Simpsons, when what's his name, the father? Homer. When Homer buys Marge a bowling ball for her birthday with his initials on it. I thought you wanted this. I thought you wanted this. And that sort of surprise, which isn't always a pleasant surprise, it's because we thought we would want this. And that's true for emotions too. Why don't you talk about this? Well, someone might not want to talk about it. But you think, but if it were me, I would want to talk about it, so I'm just going to keep pressing you. And what he's saying is, what does it mean to acquire a friend? Acquire knowledge of the way that friend works so that you can love that person on their terms and not on your terms. And that's work. That's deep work. And he says, and when both friends act according to this principle, each will seek to fulfill the will of the other, and they'll share a single intention. How fitting are Aristotle's words in this regard: a friend is a second self. So you can see the Aristotelian influence, but a friend is a second self. They're not yourself. They're not a mirror image. They have connection to you, but the point is that they're not like you. And this is where Cicero and Maimonides part ways. Cicero is interested in people who are like himself. If you're like me, then we will be friends because loving you is like loving me. We call that narcissism. We have a word for it. But what happens when I actually pick a group of friends who are not like me? And I have to actually say, what do I need to do to deserve you? How do I need to understand you so that I can have a relationship with you? And this is hard. When we look at our own friend pools, sometimes they're very, very homogeneous. Economically homogeneous, religiously homogeneous, homogeneous in terms of the family construct. I think it's interesting to have friends who are not like you. And it challenges you in a lot of ways. Because when you have friends who are like you, they're just confirming your decisions. Oh, you went there on vacation? You're not going to believe it. I booked the same vacation. Oh, you drive that car. I also drive that same car. I mean, this is not a coincidence, right? We're drawn to people to confirm the decisions that we make about ourselves. You sent your kids to that school, or you went to that school, I went to that school, right? But there's a difference in actually being around people who are continuously challenging you simply because they've made decisions and choices that aren't your choices. So let's look at this division, and with this we'll close. There are three types of friends according to Maimonides: a useful friend, a pleasant friend, a friend who ethically inspires and instructs, okay? Sometimes you'll find all three of them in one person, but most of the time you won't. And Maimonides is not making a judgment about the importance of these friends. They're all important. So useful friends are like two partners. Theirs is like the friendship between a king and his army. In other words, a king needs an army, and an army needs a king. So there's utility in that. Like the Ecclesiastes, if you fall down, I have to pick you up to warm the bed. We're partners, and we do things together. I imagine that many of you have useful friends. What is a useful friend for you? A golf buddy. Thank you. Right, so a golf buddy. I'm going to put my glasses on so I can hear you. Golf buddy, right? You might not be friends in other, but you like playing golf together. Anyone else? Only one person has a useful friend here? Yeah. No?
Friend with a pickup truck.
A friend with a pickup truck.
A tall friend to reach.
A tall friend to reach high shelves. Jesse?
A friend who does some things with you that you don't want to do on your own.
Okay, so a friend, right? We go to the movies together. I don't have anyone else who likes to go to the movies, but we have that person, and we do those things together. Now, is that insignificant in your life? No. Like I always give the example, Costco, right? If I go to Costco, it's a situation. So I need to have a friend go to Costco for me because that's going to be helpful to me to have someone else do the shopping so that I'm not overspending. I gave this example the other day. My husband was in Costco and he saw someone leave with a 70-inch television and 6 toothbrushes. So he's like, did he go in for the toothbrushes or was it the TV? Because you know those impulse buys. They set us back. And then you need the guy with the pickup truck to pick up the TV. Here's my best example of useful friend, carpool. Carpool was a very big part of my life. Honestly, the day I finished carpool, I bought a smaller car. I was like, goodbye, minivan. But for a long time, the way that I saw the world was, do you have a Honda Odyssey 8-seater? And if you don't, I'm sorry, I'm not really interested in your name or anything else about you. We're all trying to get by, and carpool was a big part of my life. So these are useful friends. Now, as it happened, one of my closest friends did come out of carpool. And it was I actually lost this friend. She died of cancer some years ago, and it was very, very painful for me. But I made a deal with her. I said, I can't figure out carpool. I said, if you figure out carpool, just tell me what day to drive and who to pick up. I said, if you do carpool, I will find a principal for the high school. And both of us thought that we got the better deal. So that's how things, now, those are people who help us get by. And in the world of sociology and now psychology, there's a term for these people. And, even this is not exactly that term. It's weak ties, which I think it minimizes the significance of those relationships. Weak ties are people in our orbit. They're not quite at the level of a golf buddy, but they'll be the dry cleaner who remembers your name, the postman who comes in and sits and has a coffee with you every once in a while. Knowing those, Omaha is probably a great example of people with a lot of weak ties who you recognize for a long time. I have to say, I don't find that to be the case. I spend part of every week in New York. I don't find that to be the case, right? I don't know people's names. They don't bother getting my names because it's such a transient place. But in a non-transient place, that suffered during COVID. A lot of weak ties just fell apart because you didn't see the people in the store. You didn't go to the store. And some of those stores shut down and they just disappeared forever. So knowing that you have a weak tie, sometimes those ties get stronger. A person who does your nails, or your barber, or in barbers in the part of New York City where I have my apartment is a big Dominican population, and their barbershops are open till 11 o'clock. And there's been research on their barbershop. Their barbershops have an important social component in terms of getting people, and so they stay open late. And those are weak ties. These are people, and they're important to life because everything about life feels a little softer when someone knows your name. And someone says, "Oh, your daughter just got married. How was that?" So, "Oh, you remembered. Oh, you remembered." So Maimonides talks about weak ties and or partners, and those partners are important. There are two kinds of pleasant friends: the delightful friend and the trusted friend. The love of men for women is characteristic of the relationship with the delightful friend. That's like a little flirtation. A trusted friend inspires full confidence, so you feel it unnecessary to be reserved with him in action or in deed. You're able to reveal to him all your concerns, sorry about that typo, the good, the ugly, without fear that you'll be hurt either by him or anyone else. When one achieves this level of confidence in another person, he discovers deep pleasure in speaking with him and loving him. Now that's probably closer to Cicero's definition of friendship, a confidant. And he says it's delightful. It is delightful to have people you can trust, because there are a lot of people you probably can't trust. So there's delight in that and deep pleasure in that. But that is not Maimonides' highest level of friendship. The highest level of friendship is the last one. When both friends yearn for and are directed towards one goal, namely the good, they are to each other ethically inspiring friends. Each one wants to be helped by his friend in achieving that good for both of them together. And this is the kind of friend that we're commanded to acquire. This kind of friendship is similar to the friendship that a teacher feels for a student and a student feels for a teacher. So an ethically inspiring friend says, "You don't want to eat that. Why don't you come to the gym with me today? Why don't we go to a class together?" Right? And like, they're always pushing me. Also, they don't gossip. It's not so fun. Right? So thinking about who we want to bring into our orbits, and what Maimonides says is that's the person you have to acquire. They're out of your ethical league. They're just right here. And you're like, I'm going to have to be a better person when I'm with that person. And that person says, "Come to me, come to synagogue with me, or come to house of worship with me, or come sit with me, let's go to here." And you're like, this person always drags me so that I have to be better than myself. And Maimonides says, you got to have those people in your life. And they're not easy to get. You got to seek them out. You say to yourself, who in my life actually represents something that I want for myself? And how would I become friends with this person? Some people say, I've developed a deep friendship with a rabbi, with a teacher. And those friendships, they change lives. They're transformative. Because Maimonides says, it's not enough to have the trusted friend who takes you for who you are and always accepts you for who you are. There are people in life who say, you can be better, a better version of yourself. And if you're with me, you'll become better. I think there are great bosses like this. There are great colleagues like this who make us better because they're stretching us beyond our regular capacity. Hopefully there are people in our lives, relatives, family members, and friends who serve this purpose also. And maybe that's homework for us to do. What I call life homework is to say, how do I validate the different levels of friendship, the weak ties, the partners in the enterprise of life, the work of life, the delightful friend. And the delightful friend, you know, it might be like, oh, we should get together for lunch, but you never do lunch together. But like, you're happy to see each other and you mean to do lunch together. So there's the delightful friend, the trusted friend. And then there's the friend who ethically inspires and asks us to be a little more of ourselves, to give a little bit more to our community. A lot of people engage in philanthropy together, you know, join federations, do charitable work together. I see those are ethically inspiring friends. They're kindred spirits in justice and in making the world better. And we all need a few more of those. So thank you for this conversation on friendship, and thank you for opening up your hearts in the spirit of friendship to me this week in Omaha.